No matter where you live, no matter what your salary is, chances are your dream home is, well, pretty much just a filthy, wet dream. But don't go thinking this is just a problem with your city, your country, your government, or your local developers. This is a global trend. There isn't a single developed country today where the locals would say, "Oh, you know what? Housing here is super cheap and affordable." It might be cheap for foreigners, but never for the people who actually live there. And you know that popular argument? The one that says Zoomers are just, stupid and impulsive? Buying their matcha lattes with almond milk and making impulse buys on Amazon. And if they just stopped doing that, they'd have a house by now. It's a convenient argument. It's also completely wrong. First, the housing affordability crisis affects all generations. And second, even if you cut out the lattes, you wouldn't save enough for a car, let alone a house. The costs just don't compare. And it's the honest truth. Even with a great job at a great company, you'll be earning big money. That's only good for, well, just about that. The numbers don't lie. In this video, I'm going to be referencing US statistics a lot, mainly because it's the most comprehensive and available data. But honestly, the situation in the US is a perfect mirror for the global trend. Here's a statistical fact. The real median household income in the US in the year 2000 was about $70,000 a year. The median home sales price that same year? $172,000. You'd only need about 2.5 years of not eating or buying anything to save up for a house. Fast forward to 2023. The median income is $80,000 a year. The median home price? $430,000. Now you need to save for 5.5 years. In just 23 years, housing has become more than twice as unaffordable. And if you go back even further, to 1984, the average family earned $59,000, and a house cost $78,000. The difference was just a year and a half of salary. Now, what's important is that mortgage rates were much lower. If you look at the last 20 years, to be fair, boomers in the 80s often took on insane mortgage rates, like 10% to 17%. Today in the US, it's around 7%, and in Europe, maybe 4 to 6%. But, and I'm jumping ahead a bit here, ultra-cheap mortgages are also part of the problem. Because more people can borrow money, which means more people go house hunting, which means more demand. And you know what happens next. Germany is a bit different. 25 years ago, rates were around 7%, now they're about 3.5%. But if you're going to be jealous of Germany, be jealous of 2019 Germany, where the mortgage rate was 1.2%. So, it's a statistically proven fact. The boomer generation could, on average, buy a whole house in the US for about 4 years of work. Today, in many countries, 4 years of work at a prestigious job will maybe get you the down payment. Boomers versus Zoomers, the full picture. But let's not pretend boomers had everything handed to them on a silver platter. Here's another statistical fact. The everyday purchasing power of Zoomers is significantly higher than that of boomers when they were the same age. Yes, for Zoomers and millennials, a good education and a good house are way less accessible. But our daily needs are met in overabundance. Things that seemed like an insane luxury to boomers at our age are just normal life for us. Taxis, restaurants, cafes, movie theaters, traveling abroad, flying on planes. The older generation remembers wearing hand-me-downs from their older siblings because they had to. Today, we live in the era of fast fashion. Clothes are so cheap people buy them to wear once. There's no need to pass them down. It seems the time has passed when you could actually flex that you'd been to France. It's all become so much more accessible. You can fly across half of Europe on low-cost tickets for 30 or 40 euros. With all this, I want to give a little hope to the Zoomers watching. Yes, housing and education are less accessible for you than they were for your parents. But your parents' youth was 20 times more boring and less fulfilling than yours. That's also a fact. Why our culture makes it worse. I just got back from the US, and I couldn't stop laughing when I saw, Like a slanted, old, smelly shed, maybe 700 square feet, listed for $700,000. Every Zoomer in America is talking about it. Where are we supposed to live? I don't want to discount their problems, but for many of us, the inability to buy a home is even more painful. It's part of our cultural code. Many of us were raised to believe that the government is unstable, the economy is unstable, there are constant crises, wars, revolutions, and the only thing you can count on is your apartment. It's the most stable, reliable, understandable way to save money. And when that becomes impossible, it's a critical problem. Both of my grandmothers were scammed by the government. The state completely zeroed out the savings accounts they had paid into for years. In an instant, gone. But hey, at least they got to keep their nice state-owned apartments in the city center. So that's what you're supposed to invest in, right? I bought my first apartment when I was about 25. It took me 5 years of saving, from video blogging. Basically, from being an entrepreneur. And I kept asking myself, my income is above average, so how is anyone else buying? And the answer I got was, they're not, they rent. It's like, no regular salary, whether you're a janitor or a judge, an honest judge anyway, is enough to buy a flat. You either have to be an entrepreneur or it's impossible. The real culprit, urbanization. Let's talk about the unpleasant truth. Housing is much more affordable in rural areas. But, let's be honest, nobody wants to live there. There's less service, fewer amenities, it's not as nice, there's no infrastructure to make your life better. You want to live in the capital, with the food delivery, the variety, the airport so you can fly away easily. Close to the skyscraper where you work. The very structure of our society has changed. We don't want to work with our hands. We want to work in cool, comfortable offices. We don't want to grow our own food in a garden patch. We don't raise livestock. We buy it all at the store. Our hands have stopped feeding us directly. Now we work with our minds, clicking on keyboards, and other people feed us. And this has all led to one thing. The world's population is rapidly urbanizing. Urbanization is the process of people flocking from the countryside to the cities. According to the World Bank, over half the world's population already lives in cities. In 2020, it was 56%. In 1950, it was just 30%. People are drawn to cities looking for better economic opportunities, education, and services. This also means cities are swelling. London wasn't always this big. Like many megacities, it just ate the surrounding towns, absorbing them. Instead of the people from, say, Brooklyn being in their own separate city, they're now New Yorkers, and they commute, probably to Manhattan. And obviously, they want to live as close to Manhattan as possible. Boom, more demand. This disease spreads. The residents of the small French town of Ferney-Voltaire suddenly can't afford to live there. Why? Because, by a lucky coincidence, their town is right on the border with Geneva. So, the Swiss cross the border to buy cheap housing. It's cheap for them, but not for the French. The new players, investment funds. Lately, you've probably been hearing about the funds. What are these? They're private investment firms, private pension funds. They're all investing in real estate to pay dividends to their investors. There are also developer funds that build housing just to rent it out. Simply put, big, rich investment companies are buying up thousands of homes and renting them out at a price that's high enough to make a profit and pay back their own investors. Right now, the percentage of these players in the market is still small, but it's growing fast. You'll hear people blame them for high prices. And for now, that's not really true. In the US, for example, they own only about 2% of the single-family housing market. But 15 years ago, they owned zero. The growth has been instantaneous. And let's be honest, the goal of a private company is to control all the housing so they can rent it back to you at whatever price they want. Or at least, whatever price you can physically afford. And you know what helps these funds exist? Surprise! Cheap money. Easy, low-interest credit. This is the same cheap money that's available to developers to build more, and the same cheap money that's available to you as an affordable mortgage. It creates more demand. The problem is, in most developed countries, the market cannot respond to this new demand with new construction. Why? Bureaucracy. It's expensive, complicated, and slow to build, and the market just can't keep up with the demand, so the price goes up. How good intentions made things worse. One of the most important pillars of high housing prices is government bureaucracy. In many European countries, just getting a permit to build can take years. That's all work for lawyers, preparing documents. It's all expensive, and you pay for that in the end. And on one hand, this is all done to make the final buyer happy, to ensure high-quality construction that meets all the codes. That sounds good, right? But it also eliminates new potential players from the market because it's just too hard to get started. The cost of construction itself has also skyrocketed. We spent the last century fighting for workers' rights. People started getting paid for their labor. In the EU, even an immigrant without citizenship is guaranteed the same minimum wage as a citizen. So, unlike countries such as Qatar, they can't just import 1 million workers from India and Bangladesh and pay them pennies to build skyscrapers. You have to pay them, and that directly increases the cost of construction. So not only did boomers have cheaper housing, they had newer infrastructure for lower taxes. Nobody talks about that. The father of, let's say, a 25-year-old German named Alfred drove on brand new, freshly paved autobahns. Alfred himself drives on those same autobahns, but now they're full of patches, because fixing them has become too expensive. And then, especially in Germany, you get opposition parties, like the Greens, who block major construction projects because they might harm the environment. So, projects get delayed for decades. Yes, Germany, once an infrastructure superpower, is now choking on its own bureaucracy. It's impossible to build anything, to modernize, to change, and the regular citizen pays for all of it, in the price of their apartment and in higher taxes. The Airbnb effect. But something that had an even more serious impact was the Airbnb effect. Just think about it. A simple phone app, in just over a decade, completely warped the real estate market in hundreds of major cities. For apartment owners in Rome, Barcelona, Berlin, all these tourist cities, it's suddenly unprofitable to rent to a local family long-term, when you can rent it to a tourist short-term for an obscene profit. Airbnb didn't just raise prices. It's had a negative cultural effect. It's displacing the local population, turning capital cities into tourist garbage dumps where locals no longer want to or can live. The Rome that, I don't know, Giuseppe was born in, is now unaffordable for Giuseppe. He can't rent the apartment that a businessman bought and now rents out by the night to a tourist from Germany. Today in Europe, it's a universal situation. Wages can't keep up with the skyrocketing rental market. As a traveler, as someone who has used Airbnb, I can feel the soul being vacuumed out of major European capitals. They're just becoming tourist attractions. And you get this paradox where mass tourism arrives to experience a culture that has already been forced to leave because of mass tourism. Globalization, the final boss. Globalization is one of the biggest reasons for all of this. It created global labor mobility. If you live in a small, unpopular city, you're lucky. But just imagine being born in New York. You're not just competing for housing with people from all over America. You're competing with people from Europe, from Asia, from the entire world. It's an explosive demand for a very limited resource. You cannot buy a home in Manhattan on a salary. Not even if you're a top programmer at Google. It's not realistic. And globalization isn't just the movement of people, it's the movement of capital. Today, wealthy Chinese investors aren't just buying in China, they're buying up Greece. Huge amounts of housing in Athens and on the Greek islands are being bought by Chinese investors. And Greeks can't afford to live there anymore. Tourists from the US and China will, but not Greeks. So yay, no matter how bad your housing situation is. Trust me, the native residents of Spain, Greece, and Italy have it worse. This also creates a labor deficit. Young people who could work in construction would rather move abroad where they can earn more. So developers either have to import foreign labor, which is hard, or raise wages for those who haven't left, which, again, raises the final price of the apartment. The worst off are people in large cities in developed economies, where wealthy and educated immigrants are flocking, and where the bureaucracy is too slow to approve new construction. This brings me to Prague. No matter where you're watching me from, do not complain about your housing prices to someone from the Czech Republic, especially from Prague. Why? Because in Prague, it takes 15 average annual salaries to buy a home. It's one of the worst-rated cities in Europe for affordability, worse than all but Athens and Amsterdam. Just so you understand, a good median salary here for someone with a degree is maybe 2,000 to 2,500 euros a month. A single square meter in a new building costs over 7,000 euros. The bureaucracy here is crippling. A developer might spend 10 years just getting permits. Plus, you have height restrictions. You can't build skyscrapers here. Labor is expensive. Materials are expensive. And demand is huge from locals and immigrants. The result? A massive housing deficit. For prices in Prague to just stop growing, the market would need tens of thousands of new apartments every single year, which, under these conditions, is impossible. And that's just the example from the Czech Republic. The reasons are slightly different everywhere, but the result is the same. It's all getting more expensive. The main reason is urbanization. All these other things, investors, funds, low construction, those are secondary. The main reason is that too many people are moving to the cities. Conclusion: what now? So what's the solution? Many countries are trying different things. Banning Airbnb, stopping golden visas for property purchases. But my opinion is that government intervention is what caused this in the first place. Who forces developers to pay a minimum wage? The government. Who forces them to meet quality standards? The government. Who forces them to get 10 years of permits? The government. And you'll say, but that's good. We need quality housing. We need workers to be paid. And you're right, but it all makes construction more expensive and more complicated. So yeah, if you can't afford a home in your city, the only solution might be to find a city abroad. That's what many people are doing. So, to sum up, demand for city living is growing faster than the cities themselves. And the whining from Zoomers is not baseless. The statistics are ironclad. No amount of saving on lattes will get you your dream home. But that doesn't mean you should give up and go buy useless junk on Amazon. Because even if you can't buy a house on a salary, you can use that salary to build a business. And that business can buy you a house. Yes, the risk of failure is high, but the chance of buying a house on a regular salary is almost zero. The unfortunate truth is, what seems expensive today will probably be remembered as cheap tomorrow. This trend isn't stopping. Yes, it's not the easiest era. But, along with these insane housing prices, we also got super affordable food, high-quality medicine, AI, the internet, and the ability to travel anywhere. So there's a lot of good too. Thanks for watching. Please like if you found this helpful, leave a comment, be sure to subscribe, and share this video. You can find useful links in the video or channel description. See you soon.